Hello all of you. Now let's see appeals and revision chapter. A very technical chapter with lot of interpretations involved in this. Though it is a procedural chapter, hello everyone. Now let's see appeals and revision. Now in this chapter what we'll see is that the adjudicating officers, that is the basic officers who are there, the assessment wing officers, when they pass an order against you, against the assessee, against the person, then that person, if he feels prejudiced, if he feels unhappy with that order, he can file an appeal. So what is appeal basically? Appeal means a complaint made to a higher authority against the decision of a lower authority. That is called as appeal. So you go into appeal. So in GST there are 4 stages of appeal. First you will go to the appellate authority, which is basically the authority set up by the government itself. Commissioner level authorities are there, so they will hear your appeal. Then if you are dissatisfied there also, then you can go into further appeal to the tribunal. From there you can go to the High Court, and from there to Supreme Court. Which means that there are 4 levels of appeal: appellate authority again, tribunal, High Court and Supreme Court. Okay, so all these 4 levels we'll study in this chapter, one after the other. So let's start with 107, the first one, that is appeal to the appellate authority. So first the definition is given that appellate authority means the authority appointed or authorized to hear appeals as referred to in section 107. Now who are these appellate authorities? That we'll see in the rule which follows this section. Okay. Now let's see. Any person aggrieved means unhappy, by any decision or order passed under this Act or the State Act or the UT Act. Okay. So all the acts are, the appellate authorities can hear the appeals under all the acts. Okay. So under this Act or the State Act or the UT Act. By an adjudicating authority means the assessment authorities, one who decides the matters under section 73, 74 and the other sections. So they are called as the adjudicating authorities. And now we are moving to appellate authorities. So appellate wing and adjudication wing are different. Adjudication wing deals with the assessment matters, that is for the first time when the assessment is done, and appeals are the secondary issues. Okay. May appeal to such appellate authority as may be prescribed. Prescribed means as per the rules. So we'll see who is the prescribed authority. Within 3 months from the date on which the said decision or order is communicated to such person. So if you want to make a small chart, then all the timings are important. So appeal has to be filed within a period of 3 months. Okay. Then second point says that the commissioner may on his own motion. Commissioner may, that is the department officer himself. Commissioner may on his own motion or upon the request from the commissioner of state tax or commissioner of UT tax, call for and examine. This is the central tax commissioner, CT. Okay. And if the state commissioner requests the central commissioner, then also the central commissioner will conduct this inquiry. Call for and examine the record of any proceeding in which the adjudicating authority has passed any decision or order under this Act or under the State Act or under the UT Act, for the purpose of satisfying himself as to the legality or propriety of the said decision or order, and may by order direct any officer subordinate to him, that is subordinate to the commissioner, to apply to the appellate authority within 6 months from the date of communication of the original order. Said order means the original order, or order for the determination of such points determination of such points arising out of the said decision or order as may be specified by the Commissioner in his order. So this is department appeal. So subsection 1 deals with assessee appeal, where the assessee means you, the aggrieved person, may go into appeal, and subsection 2 deals with department appeal. So in department appeal, what happens is that the Commissioner, who is the boss, he calls for the record from his lower authorities, the adjudicating authorities, like Assistant Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner. They have passed the orders. So the Commissioner, the boss, will call for those records and check the validity of the order passed. Is the order legal and properly passed? Legality and propriety, these two are the important words you have to remember. So he will satisfy himself regarding the legality and propriety. Legality means, is the order as per the law? Propriety means, does that officer have sufficient powers to pass this type of order? So that is propriety. Propriety relates to the person. What are the powers of that person? Have those powers been correctly followed or not? Legality means the law. So these two things will be checked by the Commissioner in the order of adjudicating authority. And if he is not satisfied, if the Commissioner is not satisfied with the legality or propriety, then the Commissioner will direct his subordinate officers, any one of them, to go and file an appeal with the appellate authority. So here appeal can be filed by the assessee as well as the department itself. Then subsection 3 says that where in pursuance of an order under subsection 2, the authorized officer makes an application to the appellate authority. So this is related to 2. Commissioner has authorized his subordinate officer to go into appeal, and now that subordinate officer will go into appeal. So when he files an application to the appellate authority, such application shall be dealt with by the appellate authority as if it were an appeal. So department appeal will also be considered as good as an appeal, as a full-fledged appeal made against the decision or order of the adjudicating authority, and such authorized officer where the appellant and the provisions of this act relating to appeal shall apply to such application. So such officer, the authorized officer, will be deemed to be an appellant. He will be called as an appellant, and all the provisions of the act will apply accordingly. Then the appellate authority may, if he is satisfied that the appellant was prevented by sufficient cause. So here the appellant means the assessee, was prevented by sufficient cause from presenting the appeal within 6 months, or 3 months or 6 months. So for 6 months means the department appeal, the officer, and 3 months means the assessee, the appellant assessee. So if they were unable to file the appeal within 3 or 6 months, as the case may be, then allow it to be presented within a further period of 1 month. Means 1 month extension can be granted. So it will be 3 plus 1 or 6 plus 1. Okay. Then every appeal under this section shall be in such form and verified in such manner as may be prescribed. So the appeal forms are made by the government. You have to follow their form, and verify means sign through your digital signature, etc. Then subsection 6 is pre-deposit. Before you file the appeal, you have to deposit certain amount of tax. So what is the amount of tax to be deposited? Let's see. It says no appeal shall be filed under subsection 1 unless the appellant has paid in full. In full means full 100%. Such part of the amount of tax, interest, fine, fee and penalty, whatever is in dispute, arising from the impugned order, means the order which has been appealed against, as is admitted by him. So for example, if the dispute is 25 crores or maybe 50 crores, out of 50 crores you are admitting 10 crores. So that 10 crores you have to pay in full, okay, before you file appeal. So before appealing, whatever amount you have admitted out of the order, that you have to deposit in full, and a sum equal to 10% of the remaining amount of tax in dispute arising from this said order, subject to a maximum of 25 crore rupees in relation to which the appeal has been filed. So out of the remaining amount you have to deposit 10%, okay, subject to a maximum of 25 crores. Means what will happen here is, let me explain you with an example, that if the order says that you have to pay an amount of 600 crores, okay, you admit 150 crores and you dispute the balance 450 crores. So balance 450 crores is under dispute and you have admitted that you are liable to pay 150 crores. So how much is the deposit to be made? You have to make payment of accepted amount, that is 150 in full, plus 10% of 450. 10% of 450 crores will be 45 crores. So that will be restricted to 25 crores. Okay, so plus 25 crores. So plus it will be 45 or 25, whichever is less. Means 150 plus 25 is equal to 175. So you have to deposit 175 crores before filing the appeal with the Commissioner Appeals, right? So that is given there. And subsection 7 then says that where the appellant has paid the amount under subsection 6, the recovery proceeding for the balance amount shall be deemed to be stayed. So there will be a stay order imposed on the balance amount. Means the balance amount will not be recovered from you right now. There is automatic stay till the case is disposed of finally. Then the appellate authority shall give an opportunity to the applicant of being heard. That's natural thing. Then the appellate authority may, if sufficient cause is shown at any stage of hearing of the appeal, grant time to parties or any of them and adjourn the hearing of the appeal for reasons to be recorded in writing. Adjournments can be granted, time can be granted, but no party can demand adjournments for more than 3 times. Okay, so proviso says that no such adjournment shall be granted more than 3 times to a party during hearing of the appeal. Means there are 2 parties, one is the appellant and the other is the respondent. If I appeal, the government comes as a respondent. If they appeal, I come as a respondent. So both of us have a right to demand 3 adjournments each. One party, 3 adjournments. Then the appellate authority may at the time of hearing of the appeal allow an appellant to add any ground of appeal at the time of hearing. Normally when you file your form, the appeal form, you have to mention all the grounds of appeal on which you are appealing. But suppose if you have left out some points, no problem. You can take up those points at the hearing stage. Hearing stage means when the case comes up for hearing. So first you file your appeal and then it comes up for hearing. So at the hearing, the appellate authority can allow the appellant to add new grounds into appeal. You can add new grounds. So it says add any ground of appeal not specified in the grounds of appeal. Not specified in the grounds of appeal means not specified in the original appeal application, the appeal that you have filed in writing. Only if it is satisfied that the omission of that ground from the grounds of appeal was not willful or unreasonable. Important point. Only if the appellate authority is satisfied that you have by mistake left out those grounds, then only it will allow you to add those new grounds at the hearing stage. But if the appellate authority feels that you had by choice left those grounds. Means you had those grounds in your mind, but still you left out. So the leaving of those grounds was willful. You had applied your minds and left those grounds. Then he will not allow you to add those grounds at the hearing stage. Understood? Then, the appellate authority shall, after making such further inquiry as may be necessary, then the process will begin. The hearings will begin. Both the parties will be given opportunity of being heard, and thereafter the order will be passed. So what is the order? So subsection 11 deals with the order. Pass such order after considering everything as it thinks fit, that is just and proper, confirming, modifying or annulling the decision or order appealed against, but shall not refer the case back to the adjudicating authority that passed the said decision or order. So here it cannot send back the case. This is called as remand. This is called as remand. Normally, the appellate authorities have a power to remand. Power to remand means a power to send back the case to the original authority and asking for reassessment, asking for re-adjudication. Now this happens in a case where the original authority, the original adjudicating authority, has not applied its mind correctly and passed the order. So when it comes into appeal, the appellate authority says that how can we come to a conclusion? The original authority has not conducted proper inquiries, has not recorded proper things, has not conducted proper investigations. So how can we decide whether he has done right or wrong? Because he has not done anything. So how can we decide he is right or wrong? So in such situations, what the appellate authorities do is, like in income tax, they have the power to remand. They can set aside the order and send it back. So sending it back is called as remand. Remand it back to the original authority, the adjudicating authority, to re-adjudicate the whole matter. But here in GST, that right is not given. That right is not given to the appellate authority. They don't have the right to remand. Okay? No remand. So the appellate authority can either confirm. Confirm means whatever the original order is, it is correct in accordance with law. Modify. Modify means it can change here and there a little bit. Or annul. Annul means scrap. The original order is fully useless. It has to be scrapped. Means cancelled out. So three things can be done: confirm, modify or annul the decision or order appealed against, but shall not remand. Okay. Then provided that an order enhancing any fee or penalty or fine in lieu of confiscation. Fine in lieu of confiscation means when your goods are confiscated, you are given a choice to pay fine and release the goods. So that is called as fine in lieu of confiscation. Or confiscating goods of greater value, or reducing the amount of refund or input tax credit shall not be passed unless the appellant has been given a reasonable opportunity of showing cause against the proposed order. So suppose the appellate authority is going to enhance your assessment, enhance the duty payable, enhance the interest, enhance the penalty, enhance the goods to be confiscated, enhance the fine, or reduce your ITC, reduce your refund, then an opportunity must be given of being heard. So without giving you an opportunity, it cannot do that. Then provided further that where the appellate authority is of the opinion that any tax has not been paid. Now comes the tax. Now the difference in the first and second proviso is, can you tell me the difference? This proviso only deals with fee. This is the late fees, the penalties, the fines and confiscation and ITC and refund. It doesn't deal with tax. Does it deal with tax? See? No. So if in the original order there is tax plus interest, penalty and so on and so forth, and the appellate authority wants to increase the interest, increase the penalty, increase the fines, increase the confiscations, reduce the ITC, reduce the refund, then the first proviso applies. And the condition required under the first proviso is opportunity of being heard, opportunity to show cause. So only the opportunity will be given and the decision will then be passed. The order will be passed. But if tax is to be increased, if the original GST amount is to be increased, then two conditions are required. Opportunity of being heard, that is of course to be given. Second is very important point, and that is that notice has to be issued under the provisions of section 73 or 74, as the case may be. Fraud case then 74, error case 73. And do you remember the time limit of 73 and 74? 73, 3 years from 31st December, that is the due date for filing the annual return for that particular year in which the short leave was there. And fraud case 5 years is the time limit. So if this notice is sent by the appellate authority within that 3 years period or 5 years period, then the tax can be enhanced. But if that 3 years and 5 years have lapsed, by the time the matter comes to appellate authority, if those limitation periods have lapsed, 3 years and 5 years, then notice cannot be sent. And if notice cannot be sent, the assessment cannot be done, means the tax cannot be increased. So what it means is that appellate authority is also bound by the time limitation under 73 and 74. Understood? Very important point. So that is given here. That appellate authority is of the opinion that any tax has not been paid or short paid or erroneously refunded, or where the input tax credit has been wrongly availed or utilized, no order requiring the appellant to pay such tax or input tax credit shall be passed unless the appellant is given notice to show cause. So first is the notice to show cause, means the show cause notice has to be given against the proposed order, and the order is passed within the time limit of section 73 and 74. And what is the time limit for passing the order under 73? 3 years from 31st December, that is the due date of filing the annual return for that particular year, and 74, 5 years. So very important point. So if tax is to be recovered, means tax is to be enhanced and recovered, then 73 and 74 will apply. They will apply, the time limit of 73 and 74 will apply even to the appellate authority. Then the order of the appellate authority disposing of the appeal shall be in writing and shall state the points for determination, the decision thereon, and the reasons for the decision. Simple. So that is called as a speaking order. Then the authority shall, where it is possible to do so, very interesting words, where it is possible to do so, hear and decide every appeal within a period of 1 year from the date on which it is filed. Means this 1 year period for deciding the appeal is not mandatory. It is directory in nature. It is directory and not mandatory. The time limit of 73-74 are mandatory. Adjudication time limitations are always mandatory. If they don't pass it within that time, then they cannot pass it later on. But appeal times are always directory in nature, because justice can get delayed, but it should not be denied. Okay. So in appeals, the time limits are not binding, they are directory in nature. So hence these words, where it is possible to do so. Like I tell my students, where it is possible to do so, you must pass in the first attempt. Means it is not mandatory. Bad joke. Okay, let's see. Then provided that where the issuance of order is stayed by the order of court, whenever there is a stay on the appellate authority from passing the order, then that period, the stay period, will be excluded from the 1 year period. Then on disposal of the appeal, the appellate authority shall communicate the order passed by it to the appellant, the respondent, and the adjudicating authority. whoever is the appellant. Appellant can be either the assessee or the department, and the respondent will be the other party. And one copy will go to the adjudicating authority. Adjudicating authority means that authority who has originally passed the order which is appealed against. Then a copy of the order passed by the authority shall also be sent to the jurisdictional commissioner or the authority designated by him in this behalf, and the jurisdictional commissioner of state tax or the union territory tax or any authority designated by them in this behalf. So one copy will be sent to the jurisdictional commissioner of central tax and one copy to jurisdictional commissioner of the state or the union territory tax. Then every order passed under this section shall, subject to provisions of 108 and 108 that we'll see later, and 13 and 17 and 18, be final and binding on the parties. So that means that if the order is passed here and nobody goes into appeal in 108, then it is deemed to be final. Then the rules are given there. Rules will define the procedure. The application form numbers and all that is given. So rule 108, very simple, that appeal under subsection 1 of 107 shall be filed in APL 1. APL stands for appeal. Appeal form number 1, along with the relevant documents, either electronically or otherwise, means you can file it physically also, as may be notified by the commissioner, and a provisional acknowledgement shall be issued to the appellant immediately. An acknowledgement will be given to him that your appeal is accepted. Then grounds of appeal and the form of verification as contained in APL 1 shall be signed in the manner provided in Rule 26, means digital signature. Then a certified copy of the decision or order appealed against. Certified copy of the decision or order appealed against means the original order on which you are filing appeal shall be submitted within 7 days of the filing of the appeal. So within 7 days we will also submit the copy of the original order, and a final acknowledgement indicating appeal number shall be issued thereafter in form APL 2 by the appellate authority or the officer authorized by him in this behalf. Then provided that where the certified copy of the decision or order is submitted within 7 days from the date of filing of the APL 1, the date of filing of the appeal shall be the date of issue of provisional acknowledgement, and where the said copy is submitted after 7 days, the date of filing of the appeal shall be date of submission of such copy. So if you submit it within 7 days, then it will be deemed as if you have filed the appeal on the original date, that is when you filed the original APL 1. But if you submit after 7 days, then the date of filing appeal will be the day when you submit this copy of the original order. So this is for that limitation period of 3 and 6 months. As we have seen earlier, the appellant, the assessees have to file the appeal within 3 months. So suppose if we file within 3 months but we don't attach this copy of the original order, then that appeal has no value. It will be deemed that the appeal is filed when you submit the original order copy. So if that is delayed, if that is submitted after 3 months, then your appeal will be considered as a delayed appeal. Then you have to go to the commissioner for extension of time. Then explanation. For the purposes of the provisions of these rule, the appeal shall be treated as filed only when the final acknowledgement indicating the appeal number is issued. That's a technical point. Then 109 gives the application to appellate authority. So it says the application to the appellate authority under 2 of 107, that is departmental appeal, will be done in APL 3 along with relevant documents, and a certified copy of the decision or order appealed against shall be submitted within 7 days, and the appeal number shall be generated only after it is submitted. That's same thing. Then appointment of appellate authority. Who is the appellate authority? Here it gives the officer. Who is the appellate authority? Up to now we have just seen appellate authority word, but who is an appellate authority? So that is given here. Just a second. any person aggrieved by any decision or order passed under this act or the state or the Union Territory Act may appeal to Commissioner Appeals, where such decision or order, decision means the original decision or order, is passed by additional or joint commissioner. Means if additional or joint commissioner are the adjudicating authorities, they have passed the original order, then appeal has to be filed with Commissioner Appeals. So Commissioner Appeals becomes the appellate authority. Okay. And second is additional Commissioner Appeals, where such decision or order is passed by deputy or assistant commissioner or superintendent within 3 months. So time is okay. Within 3 months you have to file. That's fine. But here you just mark these officers. Who is the appellate authority? Commissioner Appeals or additional Commissioner Appeals. So if the original order is passed by ACDC, then you have to file the appeal with additional Commissioner Appeals. And if the original order is passed by additional or joint commissioner, then you have to file appeal with Commissioner Appeals. Similarly, the officer directed under 2 of 107, that is departmental appeal, may appeal to Commissioner Appeals, where this decision or order is passed by additional or joint commissioner, and additional Commissioner Appeals. Here the officer himself is called as additional Commissioner Appeals if the decision is passed by deputy or assistant commissioner or superintendent. Time will be 6 months. That you know now. Then order of appellate authority or tribunal. The appellate authority shall, along with its order under subsection 11 of 107, issue a summary of the order in APL 4 indicating the final amount of demand confirmed. What is the final amount of demand confirmed? That will be written there. And the jurisdictional officer shall issue a statement in APL 4 clearly indicating the final amount of demand confirmed by the appellate tribunal. That's simple. Then comes section 108, that is revisional authority. So this section deals with revision. Okay. So what it says, see, subject to provisions of section 121 and any rules made thereunder, we'll see it later on, the revisional authority may, of his own motion or upon information received, own motion means on his own, or upon information received by him, or on request from the Commissioner of State Tax or Union Territory Tax, call for and examine the record of any proceeding in which and if he considers that any decision or order passed under this act or under the State Goods and Service Tax Act or under the UT Act by any officer subordinate to him. So here the revisional authority means who? The boss. The boss, that is basically the commissioner, will call for and examine the proceedings in which the decisions or orders have been passed by the subordinate officers. And if he is satisfied, okay, so if he is satisfied that the order is erroneous insofar as it is prejudicial to the interests of the revenue and is illegal or improper, means against department. The revenue means department. So the original order is erroneous. It is erroneous, and erroneous in what sense? That it is against the department. The tax recovery has been reduced and is illegal or improper, and has not taken into account certain material facts, whether available at the time of issuance of the said order or not. Certain material facts have not been taken into consideration while passing the original order. Important material facts have not been considered, whether they were available at the time of issuance of order or they have come to his knowledge later on. So whether or not likha hai na. So whether or not means that whether it was available at that time or not. Means suppose if it was not available and it is available now when the commissioner is examining this whole thing, say 2 months down the line, then also he can ask the original authority to revise. or in consequence of observation, in consequence of an observation by the CAG of India, then he may, if necessary, stay the operation of such decision or order. So first he will impose a stay on the original order for such period as he deems fit, and after giving the person concerned an opportunity of being heard, and after making such further inquiry as he may consider necessary, pass such order as he thinks just and proper, including enhancing or modifying or annulling the said decision or order. Now why it is called as the revisionary authority? Because revision is done by the department boss, not by the appellate wing. Here we are not going into the appellate wing. Suppose the assistant commissioner has passed the order, then the boss, that is the commissioner, can call for this order, examine it, and if he finds that there is something wrong in it and it is prejudicial to the interests of revenue, then he can pass the revision order. Means the boss, means the commissioner, can revise the order himself. Then second point says that the revisional authority shall not exercise any power under subsection 1 if the order has been subject to an appeal. If it has already gone into appeal, if the matter has already gone into appeal, then the commissioner will sit quietly, because once it goes into appeal to higher authorities, then commissioner's power of revision comes to an end. Okay. Appeal under 107, that is appellate authority, or 112 tribunal or high court or supreme court, or the period specified under subsection 2 of 107 has not yet expired, that is 6 months. 6 months, 2 of 7, that is the commissioner had the power to tell the officer to go into appeal. That power is there to go into appeal. So if that power has not yet expired, means that 6 months power has not yet expired, or more than 3 years have expired after passing of the decision or order sought to be revised. Now this you will not understand. Let me explain it to you. See, here is the original order. Okay, original order passed, the adjudicating order. So from here, 6 months time is there. Okay, and then we'll say 3 years. 6 months and 3 years. So if within 6 months the commissioner gets the information, he calls for and examines that original order. This original order is examined by the commissioner, and the commissioner, I will write CCT, Commissioner of Central Tax, is of the opinion that this order is erroneous and it is against the interest of revenue. So then what he will do is, he will not pass the revision order. CCT will not pass the revision order. He will ask any officer to file an appeal to the appellate officer, the appellate authority. So if CCT finds that something is illegal there, then he will direct officer, any officer below him, to file appeal to appellate authority. Means he will not revise the matter himself, but he will send the case into appeal. If this time is still there, 6 months time is left, then appeal. If 6 months time has gone, then he cannot direct appeal. So then he will revise himself. Then the CCT will revise himself. So if Commissioner of Central Tax wants to revise himself after 6 months, he can do so. So here CCT passes the revision order, that is section 108 will apply here, and here section 107 subsection 2 will apply. So if time limit of 107(2) is there, then file appeal. If no, then revise. Then CCT will revise himself. And if 3 years have also gone, then he cannot do any of the two things. So after 3 years, nothing can be done. No appeal, no revision. So after that, nothing. Understood? Great. So you can pause the lecture and take down. And third point, the order has already been taken for revision under this section at any earlier stage. Means once the revision has already been done. So if revision is already done, then it cannot be done again. One revision can be done only. So first point, if it has already gone into appeal. If the matter has already gone into appeal, then revision comes to an end. Revision cannot be done. Or the B point or the C point, that revision has been done once, then it cannot be done again. And fourth, the order has been passed in exercise of the powers under subsection 1. The order has already been passed in exercise of powers under subsection 1. Provided that the revisional authority may pass an order under subsection 1 on any point which has not been raised and decided in appeal, referred to in clause A, before the expiry of a period of 1 year from the date of the order in such appeal, or before expiry of 3 years, referred to in clause B of that subsection, whichever is later. Now the 3 years is okay, that is the time limit, but what is important is that suppose the matter has gone into appeal, like in this clause A. Clause A said that if matter has gone into appeal, then commissioner cannot revise. But the point is that if there were 6 matters in the original adjudication order, original adjudication was done on 6 matters, and the appeal has been filed only on 2 matters. So in appeal only 2 matters have gone, the balance 4 are remaining now. So if the commissioner wants to revise any of these 4 matters, can he revise? Yes. So he can revise those matters which have not gone into appeal. Understood? Which have not gone into appeal. And those matters which have gone into appeal cannot be revised by the commissioner. Then every order passed in revision shall, subject to provisions of so and so, be final and binding on the parties. Subject to these sections means you have the right, the assessee has the right to go into appeal against the revision order. You can make an appeal to tribunal, High Court, Supreme Court. But if you have not gone there, then it will be final and binding. Then if the said decision or order involves an issue on which the appellate tribunal or the High Court has given its decision in some other proceedings, and an appeal to High Court or the Supreme Court against such decision of the appellate tribunal or the High Court is pending. We had seen such a point in the past lecture, do you remember? The period spent between the date of decision of appellate tribunal and the High Court or the High Court and Supreme Court shall be excluded for computing the period of limitation under this section. So we had discussed this point some time before. I am not remembering, but you will remember, right? So what it means is that here the original order is passed and the matter is now before Commissioner of Central Tax for revision. Okay, but this matter which is there before CCT for revision, this matter has already been decided. In some other case, it has been decided by tribunal. It has been decided by tribunal, but this decision of tribunal is pending in High Court, or it has been decided by High Court and it is pending in Supreme Court. Then what happens is, let's see, this decision, these are the case laws. Case laws apply to the other matters also now. So if the decision comes here, then that decision will be applied by CCT and this order will be passed accordingly. So he can wait. He says that okay, I'll wait till the High Court or Supreme Court passes their orders, because it is pending right now. So let them be decided. If it is decided here, I will apply it here and pass my order, do the revision. So he has to wait till what time? Till the time these cases get disposed of. So the time which is taken in disposing of these cases, the time which is taken here by the High Court or Supreme Court to dispose of the case, this time limit is excluded here from the limitation period, or you can say is added to the limitation period. So CCT will get extension of time. Simple. Then subsection 5 says that where the issuance of the order under 1 is stayed by the court, if the issuance of order is stayed by the court or tribunal, then the stay period is also to be excluded from the limitation period. And for the purpose of this section, the term record shall include all records relating to any proceeding under this act available at the time of examination by the revisional authority. Means, if any new information has come in after the original adjudication order was passed, but before examination of that order by the commissioner. So during this time, if any new information has come on record, can that also be taken into consideration? Answer is yes, because record includes all records at the time of examination, not the record that was available with the adjudicating authority when he passed the order, but record means all information which is available at the time of examination. That means that any new information found will also be taken into consideration to determine whether the original order is erroneous or not. And secondly, decision shall include intimation given by the officer lower in rank than revisional authority. Obviously, if the revisional authority is, say, Commissioner of Central Tax, and the original adjudication is also done by Commissioner of Central Tax, then can CCT revise it? No. The same authority cannot revise the order. It has to be the higher authority, not the same authority. So therefore it has to be lower in rank. Okay. Then there are two sections. Constitution of tribunal. So see, now we have seen 2 points up till now. One is the original appellate authority, that is Commissioner Appeals basically, or the additional Commissioner Appeals, and one is the revisional authority, which will normally be the Commissioner of Central Tax. Now comes the second appeal. Second appeal goes to tribunal, appellate tribunal. So 2 sections we'll see here: constitution of the tribunal and its benches, and who can be appointed on that tribunal. How are the members appointed on the tribunal? Now these 2 sections are for academic interest, are for general knowledge. These 2 sections I don't expect to come in the exam. Okay, so let's go through it. We'll go through it once, and if you remember, it's good. If you don't, it's good. Nothing is bad. Okay, so let's see. First we'll see constitution of the tribunal and benches thereof. So it says, government shall, on recommendation of the council, by notification constitute with effect from such date as may be specified therein an appellate tribunal known as the Goods and Service Tax Appellate Tribunal. This is the name. GST Appellate Tribunal. GST Appellate Tribunal means GSTAT. GSTAT will be the short name. For hearing appeals against the order passed by appellate authority or the revisional authority. So appellate authority's orders will be appealed to GSTAT, and the revisional authority's orders 107 and 108, both these orders can be appealed to GSTAT. Then powers of the appellate tribunal shall be exercisable by the national bench. Now the GK starts. So there will be national bench and benches thereof, hereinafter in this chapter referred to as regional benches. So there will be national bench and benches of national bench in different places called as regional benches. So there will be a national bench and below that the regional benches, RBs. And state bench will be in each state, and benches thereof called as area benches, SB, AB. National bench, and within that the regional benches, state bench, and within that state the area benches. Now this is very important to understand. We have got 2 acts, the Central Act, State Act, and all the appeals can be filed here and there. right? So as regards the tribunal is concerned, there is a division of work. There will be a division of work. Any question relating to place of supply, any question relating to place of supply, that where is the place of supply, this place or that place or this or that, will be determined by national bench and regional benches. Okay, national bench is in New Delhi, and then it will have its regional benches across all the states. So they will hear the matters arising out of place of supply. If any question of place of supply is there, it will go to regional bench or the national bench. And all other matters, valuation and this and that and time of supply and all other matters arising out of the act, will go to state bench or the area bench. Okay, so like in Maharashtra there will be state bench, the principal bench will be say in Bombay, and then there will be different area benches in 4-5 other places across the state. So according to the jurisdiction of your area bench, you have to go and file appeal in that particular area bench. Understood? So place of supply, this will come in the section later on. I am telling you beforehand. Place of supply question will go to national bench or regional benches. All other questions will go to state bench or area bench. Fine? Good. The national bench of the appellate tribunal shall be situated at New Delhi, C, which shall be presided over by the President of India, President of the tribunal, and shall consist of one technical member center and one technical member state. So on national bench, it will be presided over by the President, P, plus TM, technical member of center, and one technical member of representing the states. Full representation has to be there. You cannot appoint just the central government officers there. The state government will complain that why we are not represented there. Our officers should also be there. So one technical member state will also be there on the national bench. Then the government shall, on the recommendation of the council by notification, constitute such number of regional benches as may be required, and such regional benches shall consist of judicial member, one technical member center, and one technical member state. So there the president is also the judicial member, and here there will be judicial members. So tribunal consists of two types of members: the judicial members who are legal experts, and technical members who are accounting and other technical thing experts. So one technical member of center and one technical member state, and one judicial member. How many regional benches will be appointed? As decided by the government on recommendation of tribunal, the council. So they will decide how many we need depending upon the volume of cases. Then the national bench or the regional bench of the appellate tribunal shall have jurisdiction to hear appeals against the orders passed by the appellate authority or revisional authority in the cases where one of the issues involved relates to place of supply. As I told you, they will only hear the matters relating to place of supply, or one of the matters if it is place of supply. Then that case will go to these benches, the national bench or the regional bench. Then the government shall by notification specify for each state or union territory a bench of tribunal which will be called as the state bench for exercising the powers of the tribunal within the concerned state or union territory. So state benches will then be formed for each state. Provided that the government shall, on receipt of request from any state government, constitute such number of area benches as may be recommended by the council. Because if it's a big state like Maharashtra, and the state bench, if it is sitting in Bombay, then all the other assessees will have to travel to Bombay for every hearing of the case. So in that case, various area benches can also be appointed at different places. Then provided further that the government may, on receipt of the request from any state or on its own motion or for a union territory, notify appellate tribunal in a state to act as the appellate tribunal for any other state or union territory as the case may be, subject to such terms and conditions as may be prescribed. Means if there are very small states, you cannot afford to have a full appellate tribunal there. So we can make one appellate tribunal for one state, and that will take care of other states as well. Like for example, they can appoint, this is not, I don't know in practical, but they may do so, just an example, that they will appoint state, Maharashtra State Tribunal, and give it the jurisdiction to handle the cases in Goa also. So that can be done. Then the state bench or area benches shall have jurisdiction to hear appeals against orders passed by the appellate authority or the revisional authority in the cases involving matters other than those referred to under subsection 5, means other than place of supply. All other it means if the cases regarding time of supply, regarding valuation, regarding other matters, registration, returns and so on and so forth, it will go to state bench or the area bench. Area bench is a subdivision of state bench only. Then president and the state president shall by general or special order distribute the business or transfer cases among the regional benches or as the case may be area benches in a state. So president means of the national bench and state president means of the state bench will have power to distribute the matters among various benches. Then each state bench and area bench of the tribunal shall consist of a judicial member, one technical member center and one technical member state, and the state government may designate the senior most judicial member in a state as the state president. President, who will become the president? The judicial member. Technical members cannot become presidents. President will have to be a judicial member. Then 10 says in the absence of member in a bench due to vacancy or otherwise. Suppose there is a vacancy and out of 3 1 is missing. So will the bench sit quietly and stop doing any work? No, they can continue. Any appeal may, with the approval of the president, as the case may be, the state president, be heard by the bench of 2 members. At least 2 will be there, so 2 can continue. Provided that an appeal where the tax or input tax credit involved or the difference in tax or input tax credit involved as the case or the amount of fine, fee, penalty determined in any order appeal against does not exceed 5 lakh rupees. If it's a small case, the matter is of 5 lakh rupees or less, then, and which does not involve any question of law, it does not involve any question of law, may, with the approval of the president and subject to such conditions as may be prescribed on the recommendation of council, be heard by a bench consisting of a single member. This is called a single member bench. So tribunal can also have single member bench, which on which there can be a judicial member or a technical member. Just one member will sit and decide the case. These are small cases, less than 5 lakh rupees, and only question of facts are involved and not question of law. There is no question of law involved in the case, only question of fact is there, and the amount is also very less than 5 lakhs. Then single member bench. Then if the members of the national bench or regional bench or state bench or area bench differ in opinion, now this is called as a extra member case, differ in opinion on any point or points, it shall be decided by majority. So if there are 3 members, there will be a majority. One will say no and 2 are saying yes, so decision will be yes. Or one is saying yes and 2 are saying no, so decision will be no to that question. Okay, so decision will be taken by majority. If there is majority, means if there are 3 members, there will be automatically a majority. But if suppose there are only 2 members working there, one judicial and one technical, then there will be a difference. Then what will happen? So then that bench will refer that matter to the president, and the president will then appoint one other member from some other bench to go and sit on this bench along with these 2 people and decide that matter. So then he will hear that point and give his decision, and then there will be a majority. So decision will be the majority decision. So that is given there. Then 12 says that the government in consultation with the president may, for administrative convenience, transfer any judicial member or a member technical state from one bench to another bench, whether national or regional. They can transfer the members from here and there. Juggling keeps going on. And a member technical center from one bench to another bench, whether regional, national, regional, state or area. So all these points are then of no use. Okay, then 13 and 14 similar lines, no problem. Then next is 110, the qualification, appointment, etc. of these members of the tribunal. So this at least I will leave out to you. If you want, you can study, or else you can also leave it. Because even if you study, most of the points you are not going to understand. Especially the qualifications of the judicial members, because they have to be of a certain class, in the government, working for some time, at certain post. Now these posts we don't understand, right? So therefore it is of no use. But if you want, you can study once. Or if you are very happy to leave, then be happy. Then disqualifications, etc., everything is given there. So come down to 111. Procedure before the appellate tribunal. The appellate tribunal shall not, while disposing of any proceeding before it or an appeal before it, be bound, shall not be bound by the procedure laid down in Code of Civil Procedure, but shall be guided by the principles of natural justice and subject to other provisions of this Act and the rules made thereunder. The tribunal shall have power to regulate its own procedure. So tribunal has the power to regulate its own procedure, and they will follow the principles of natural justice. That is, before taking any action, a show cause notice must be given, opportunity of being heard should be given, and a speaking order should be passed. 3 points come in principles of natural justice: show cause notice, opportunity of being heard, and a passing order. Speaking order. Then 2 says, the tribunal shall, for the purpose of discharging its functions under this Act, have the same powers as are vested in a civil court under Code of Civil Procedure while trying a suit in respect of the following matters. So all these powers which are given here, they are given under the Civil Procedure Code to a court, but here the same powers will be available to tribunal also. So the whole list is given. Summoning means calling any person, and enforcing the attendance of any person and examining him on oath on the Bible or on the Gita or Quran, that oath which is taken, whatever I will say will be truth. Then requiring the discovery. Examination means asking questions on oath. Okay. Then requiring discovery and production of documents, receiving evidence on affidavits, subject to provisions of 120 and 124 of the Indian Evidence Act, requisitioning any public record or document or a copy of such record document from any office. Public record can be called for. Then issuing commissions for the examination of witnesses or documents. Then dismissing a representation for default for deciding it ex parte or deciding it ex parte. Either dismissing a representation for default means if the appellant makes a default, then his appeal will be dismissed, or it will be decided ex parte. If the respondent is not appearing on time, then it will be decided ex parte, means hearing only one party. It will be decided. Then setting aside the order of dismissal. So G is related to F. So if the appeal was dismissed because he did not come on time, but he later on comes, the appellant comes and says that please forgive me, and this happened and that happened, and he gives a lot of excuses and says that please give me the right of appeal, then his dismissal will be set aside and the case will be taken back. Or the ex parte order that was passed can be set aside and it can again be taken back for hearing, and any other matter which may be prescribed. So these points are there. Again, no question is going to come on this section. Then any order made by the tribunal may be enforced by it in the same manner as if it were a decree made by court in a suit pending therein, and it shall be lawful for the tribunal to send for execution its orders to the court within the local limits of whose jurisdiction, in the case of the order against a company, the registered office of the company is situated. Means if it is to be enforced, then it will be sent to local courts for enforcement of the orders, like for recovery of tax and so on and so forth. And in case of an order against any other person, the person concerned voluntarily resides or carries on business or personally works for gain. Like if you are having your office in Nagpur, then tribunal will send the order to Nagpur court and ask it, the district court, to enforce it against that person. So it is like that. Point number 4 not to be read. You will not understand. Then comes the main one, appeal to tribunal. Now we'll reach the appeal stage. So we have seen how the tribunals are formed. So there are 4 types of benches of the tribunal: national bench, regional bench. Regional bench means regional benches of national bench only. So basically there are 2 tribunals, national bench and state bench. Okay. Place of supply issues will be dealt with by national bench or its regional benches. All other matters will be dealt by the state bench or its area benches. Okay. Now let's see. Any person aggrieved by the order passed against him under section 107, that is by appellate authority, or 108, that is by revisional authority, okay, of this act, or the State Goods and Service Tax Act, or the Union Territory Goods and Service Tax Act, may appeal to the appellate tribunal against such order within 3 months from the date on which the order sought to be appealed against is communicated to him. Okay. So 3 months is the time within which you have to file your appeal with the tribunal. So 3 months for the original appeal to appellate authority and further 3 months for tribunal. Then the appellate tribunal may in its discretion refuse to admit any such appeal where the tax or input tax credit involved or the difference in tax means you have paid 30 lakhs but you are asked to pay 35 lakhs, so difference is 5 lakhs, or input tax credit, difference in ITC involved, or the amount of fine, fee, penalty determined by such order does not exceed 50,000 rupees. It's a chiller case, it's a meager amount. So if the appellate authority has decided a case against you and asks you to pay 25,000 rupees as tax, interest, penalty and whatsoever, so it is less than 50,000, but you go into appeal to tribunal will say, hey, look here, it is only 25,000, why don't you pay it? We dismiss your case. So tribunal has a discretionary power for chiller cases, for small cases, where the amount involved is only 50,000 or less. Okay, but if it is more than 50,000, then tribunal has to accept the appeal. But for 50 or less, it has a power to accept or reject as the case may be. Then the commissioner may on his own motion or upon request from the commissioner of state or the union territory. So this is now the department appeal. First is the assessee appeal, now is the department appeal. So commissioner may, if he is aggrieved, then he will file an appeal. Call for and examine the record of any order passed by the appellate authority or revisional authority under this act or the state act or the union territory act, and for the purpose of satisfying himself as to legality or propriety of the said order, and may by order direct any officer subordinate to him to apply to tribunal within 6 months from the date on which the said order has been passed for determination of such points arising out of the said order as may be specified by the commissioner in his order. So this is departmental appeal. Commissioner will call for the order of appellate authority or revisional authority. He will call and see whether it is legal and proper or not. If he finds that these are not legally proper orders, then he will ask his subordinate officer, hey Chaman, come here, go file an appeal to the appellate tribunal. So he will send Chaman to appellate tribunal to file an appeal. and the time limit is 6 months. And on which points to file appeal? That will be determined by the commissioner himself. So commissioner will determine on which points the appeal must be filed, and then those points will be appealed. Then where in pursuance of an order under 3 the authorized officer makes an application to tribunal, such application shall be dealt with by the tribunal as if it were an appeal. Means it will also be deemed to be an appeal made against the order of 107 or 108, and the provisions of this act shall apply to such application as they apply in relation to appeals. Simple. Then on receipt of the notice that an appeal has been preferred. Now what happens? That if assessee goes into appeal, notice is sent to department. If department comes into appeal, notice is sent to the assessee. Their appeal has been filed. So the other person is called as the respondent. One who goes into appeal is called as the appellant. The other is called as the respondent. Respondent gets the power to file a memorandum of cross objection. So appellant files appeal. The respondent files memorandum of cross objection. Cross objection means he is objecting to this appeal. And in this memorandum of cross objection, there is one more right, and that is he will not only file the cross objections, but he can also bring those points into appeal which have not been brought by the appellant. So what happens here? See, this is the important point. Understand. The appellate authority has decided 4 points. Appellate authority has decided 4 points in appeal. Out of these 4 points, 1 point was against the assessee. 1 point was against the assessee. 3 were in favor of assessee. Means these 3 were against the department. Favor of assessee means against the department. So department is aggrieved on these 3 points. Assessee is aggrieved on 1 point. Department is aggrieved on 3 points. Assessee says that okay, 1 point I am aggrieved, but it's fine, let it be, let go. He does not want to file an appeal, so he does not go into appeal. But department is aggrieved on 3 points, so they will like to file appeal. So department comes into appeal on these 3 points. Obviously they will bring 3 points only, na? They will not bring that 4th point because that is in their favor. So they are aggrieved on 3 points, they bring 3 points into appeal. Notice comes to the assessee, their appeal has been filed. Now assessee thinks that anyways we have to go to file cross objection on those 3 points. Why not take this 1 point into appeal? So he can bring that 1 point into appeal in his memorandum of cross objection. So when he files his memorandum of cross objection, he can bring that 4th point also into appeal. So that is the right available to him. And the beauty is that if we were to go into appeal, we have to pay the fees, the appellate fees that has to be paid. But if we come as a respondent to file MOCO, there is no fees. So you save the fees and you file the appeal also. So that is given there. See, on receipt of the notice that appeal has been preferred under this section, the party against whom the appeal has been preferred, that is called as the respondent, may, notwithstanding that he may not have appealed against such order or any part thereof, notwithstanding that otherwise he was not going to appeal now. So here it says notwithstanding that he may not have appealed against that 1 point. Within 45 days of receipt of the notice, file a memorandum of cross objection. He can file a memorandum of cross objection within 45 days of the receipt of the notice, verified in the prescribed manner, against any part of the order appealed against, and such memorandum shall be disposed of by the tribunal as if it were an appeal. So that 1 point which we now bring into appeal by way of memorandum of cross objection, it will also be deemed to be point of appeal only. So it will be decided in the same manner, and it will be deemed as if we have filed the appeal within the prescribed time. However, we have not done so. We had got those 3 months to file appeal. Those 3 months have gone. We haven't filed. Department filed appeal. We got the chance to file a memorandum of cross objection within 45 days. So within this 45 days, if we bring this 1 point into appeal, it will be deemed as if it has been filed in time. Then the tribunal may admit Any appeal within 3 months after the expiry of the period specified under subsection 1, or permit the filing of memorandum of cross objection within 45 days after the expiry of the original 45 days, if it is satisfied that there was sufficient cause for not presenting it within time. So this is extension of time. So for appeal, the original time was 3 months, so it is extendable by a further 3 months. And for MOCO, memorandum of cross objection, original was 45 days plus can be extended by further 45 days. Then appeal has to be in such form and verified in such manner as may be prescribed. That's fine. Then subsection 8 here is again pre-deposit. So it says that no appeal shall be filed under subsection 1 unless the appellant has paid in full such part of the tax, interest, fine, penalty, etc., which has been admitted by him. Just like appellate authority, here also whatever you accept, that you have to deposit in full, and a sum equal to 20% of the remaining amount of tax in dispute. In addition to the amount paid under subsection 6 of 107. Now this is in addition to 107. So 107 was appellate authority, the first appeal. There we have already deposited 10% or 25 crores, whichever is less. Now this 20% will be in addition to that. Okay, arising from the said order, subject to a maximum of 50 crore rupees in relation to which the appeal has been filed. So maximum here is 50 crores. In 107, the maximum was 25 crores. So simple. So apart from that deposit, you have to further deposit 20%. Okay, in addition to. So this is further deposit of 20% of the disputed amount of tax, or 50 crores, whichever is less. And the amount that you accept will be deposited in full, and the amount that you dispute, so of that you have to deposit 20% or 50 crores, whichever is less. Simple. And again subsection 9 is similar, that where the appellant has paid the amount as per subsection 8, the recovery proceeding for the balance amount shall be deemed to be stayed till the disposal of the appeal. Means there will be automatic stay order on the balance amount. And every application made under the made before the tribunal in appeal for rectification of error or for any purpose or for restoration of appeal shall be accompanied by such fees as may be prescribed. So for rectification, suppose if you are making a rectification application later on, you have to pay separate fees for that. And then the rules are given for the form numbers and all, which you don't have to remember. So you can just go through it later on. All these rules. Then come to 113, order of the tribunal. So once the appeal is filed, now the tribunal will give a hearing to both the parties and then decide the case. So that is given here. The tribunal may, after giving the parties to the appeal an opportunity of being heard, pass such orders thereon as it thinks fit, confirming, modifying, or annulling the decision or order appealed against. Right? It can confirm, it can modify, it can annul. And very importantly, or may refer the case back to the appellate authority or the revisional authority or to the original adjudicating authority with such directions as it may think fit for fresh adjudication or decision after taking additional evidence if necessary. So this is called as a power of remand. Now here is the difference. The appellate authority, first appellate authority, did not have the power of remand. Tribunal has that power. Tribunal has the power to remand. Send back the case to the original authority or to the appellate authority or to the revisional authority and ask it to re-adjudicate the matter, re-decide the case. Then Next point says that the tribunal may, if sufficient cause is shown at any stage of hearing of the appeal, grant time and also adjournment, but again the same point, maximum 3 adjournments to one party. And the tribunal may amend, power of rectification is also there. These are the all technical points. Power to amend any order passed by it so as to rectify any error apparent on the face of the record, if such error is noticed by it on its own accord, or is brought to its notice by the Commissioner, or the Commissioner of State, or the Commissioner of Union Territory, or the other party, within a period of 3 months from the date of the order. Time for rectification is 3 months. Provided that no amendment shall have the effect of enhancing the assessment or reducing the credit or refund unless an opportunity of being heard is given, obviously. And the tribunal shall, as far as possible, see again, as far as possible means again the time is directory and not mandatory, decide the appeal within a period of 1 year. If not decided in 1 year, no problem, you can decide it later on, but make it happen in 1 year. Please do it in 1 year. It's like that. Where it is possible, you do it. And then the tribunal will send copies. And lastly it says, subject to 117 and 118, orders of the tribunal shall be final and binding. So subject to 117 and 18 means if you go to High Court then fine, otherwise the tribunal's order is final and binding. Then financial and administrative powers of President is given. This is of no use. This is a departmental thing, not for exam point of view. All the finances will be handled by the President. Then 115 says that where any amount paid by the appellant under 6 of 107, that is the deposits, the deposit amount paid before the appellate authority or before the tribunal is required to be refunded consequent to order of the authority or the tribunal. We had deposited that 10% and 20% amount, right? One which we accept we have deposited in full, and the balance we had deposited 10 and 20% respectively. So if we win the case, if we totally win the case, then that deposit that we have given will be refunded to us. So that refund will be increased by interest. We will get interest also. So that is given there. Interest at the rate specified under 56 shall be payable in respect of such refund from the date of payment of the amount, means from the date of deposit till the date of refund of such amount. Then there is a section, appearance by authorized representatives, that is your employees, your chartered accountant, etc. You can appoint a representative to present your case before the authorities. So directly come to subsection 2 for that. There is a list of who can be appointed as a representative. Relative or regular employee, you can appoint your relative or your employees. Yeah, advocates, your chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary who holds a certificate of practice and who has not been debarred from practice by the respective institutes, or retired officer of the commercial tax department of any state government or union territory or of the board who during his service under the government had worked in a post not below the rank of that of Group B gazetted officer for not less than 2 years. Retired government officers, in simple words. And any person who has been authorized to act as goods and service tax practitioner. This point we had seen earlier. GST practitioners. So they can also represent you in the case. And then there is a negative list of people who cannot be appointed as representatives. Okay, who has been dismissed or removed from government service, who is convicted for offence connected with proceeding under the Act or the State Act or this Integrated Act or this Union Territory Act, or under any existing laws, the old service tax, excise laws. So if anyone was convicted, then he cannot become a representative. Or who is found guilty of misconduct by the prescribed authority, or who has been adjudged as an insolvent, shall be qualified. Shall be qualified means shall not be qualified, because here it starts, no person shall be qualified. No person shall be qualified means they cannot be, they are not qualified. For all times, in the case of person referred to under ABC, for ABC they are disbarred for life, and for D till the time they are insolvent. Once the insolvency ends, then they can again become authorized persons. And the rule is also given, that is of no use. Now let me see how much is left. We are left with a little bit only, so we'll finish off in this lecture itself. Now High Court and Supreme Court is left. But before we go there, let me tell you about two things. The questions that we raise in appeal are classified either as questions of law or questions of facts. There are two types of questions, law and facts. Up to tribunal, we could have raised both the questions. But question of facts decided by tribunal become final. They cannot be further appealed to High Court or Supreme Court. Only questions of law, that is matters of law, interpretation of law, can be appealed to High Court and Supreme Court. So what is the difference in these two? Question of facts is regarding facts, whether there was a supply or not, whether invoice was made or not, whether goods were transported or not, where did the goods got delivered. These are questions of facts. Anything which can be proved by evidence is question of fact. Then whether bill was issued or not, whether money was received or not, these are all questions of facts which have to be proved by submission of evidence. Question of law is about interpretation of law. What does the law say? That is question of law. So High Court and Supreme Court can only hear and decide the questions of law and not questions of facts. Okay. So therefore, tribunal is also called as the last fact finding authority. Whatever facts have been adjudged by tribunal become final. They cannot be appealed to High Court and Supreme Court. So with this knowledge, let's come to appeal to Supreme Court. Any person aggrieved by the order passed by the state bench or area bench of the appellate tribunal may file an appeal. Now another important point. What about national bench? Is national bench referred here? No. So only the matters which are decided by state bench or area bench can be appealed to High Court. So what about national bench or regional benches? That is place of supply. Matters decided by means any decision given by national bench or regional bench is appealable directly to Supreme Court. Understand, it is appealable directly to Supreme Court, not to High Court. So which matters will come before High Court? Only the decisions of state bench and area bench. Okay. Now let's see. So any person aggrieved by any order passed by state bench or area bench of the appellate tribunal may file an appeal to High Court, and the High Court may admit such appeal if it is satisfied that the case involves a substantial question of law. Then appeal under 1 shall be filed within 180 days. Time is 180 days from the date on which the order appealed against is received by the aggrieved party, and it shall be in such form and verified in such manner as may be prescribed. Provided that the High Court may entertain the appeal after expiry of the said period if it is satisfied that there was sufficient cause for not filing it within that period. Means extension can be granted. Extension by how much is not mentioned here. It is at the discretion of High Court how much extension it wants to grant. Then where the High Court is satisfied that the question of law is involved, in any case, it shall formulate that question. It will formulate the question, that what is the exact interpretation that we need, and the appeal shall be heard only on the question so formulated, and the respondents shall, respondent means the other party, shall at the hearing of the appeal be allowed to argue that the case does not involve such question. Yeah, they can argue that the question is not involved in this case. Okay, it's a good question, but it is not involved in this case, so why to decide? So they can argue this point. And provided that nothing in this subsection shall be deemed to take away or abridge the power of the court to hear for reasons to be recorded the appeal on any other substantial question of law not formulated by it, if it is satisfied that the case involves such question. Means this is the High Court's own prerogative, that it can take any other question of law also if they feel that it is involved in the case. So assessee makes an application or the department makes application on a particular question of law. That question of law is formulated by the High Court. Now the assessee by himself is not allowed to raise a new question, but if the High Court is satisfied that another question is also involved, it can take up the matter. So High Court has suo motu power to raise any new question of law also, if it finds that it is involved in the case and that it is necessary to be decided. Then High Court shall decide the question of law so formulated and deliver such judgment thereon containing the grounds on which such decision is founded, and may award such costs as it may deem fit. Award cost means that if you have wasted time of the High Court, your question of law was not relevant, you have wasted the time of High Court, then High Court, while dismissing the case, will award cost, that you have to bear the cost of the High Court. Pay 50,000 rupees. Then the High Court may determine any issue which has not been determined by the state bench or area bench. This is again an important point. This is a technical point. So one point we saw, that High Court can by itself bring more questions of law, okay, and decide them. Related to that is this point, that if a particular question of law is involved in this case, okay, but that has not been decided by the appellate authority or the tribunal, no one has decided yet, but it is there. Unless we decide that question of law, the justice cannot be given, the overall case cannot be decided. So then High Court has the power to take it and decide it, even if it was not decided, not determined by the state bench or area bench. Means even if that point has not been adjudged, not been decided by the tribunal, it can be decided by the High Court. Or has been wrongly determined. So the matter which has already been determined by state bench, that can be taken up and decided. And those matters which have not been decided by tribunal can also be decided by the High Court. Interesting point. By reason of a decision on such question of law as herein referred to under subsection 3. Then where an appeal has been filed before the High Court, it shall be heard by a bench of not less than 2 judges. So there will be 2 judge bench of the High Court and shall be decided in accordance with the opinion of such judges or by majority if any of such judges. But how can there be a majority amongst 2 if there are 2 members? Now it says not less than 2 now. So it can be a 3-member bench, it can be a 4-member bench, it can be a 5-member bench. If it is a 3-member bench of High Court, then there will be a majority. But if it is a 2-member bench and they differ in their opinion, then again the same problem will arise. Then what the Chief Justice of High Court will do, he will appoint another judge of the High Court to hear this matter. And then they will become 3, 2 original and 1 extra. So then they will decide and form a majority. So that is given in point number 7. That when there is no such majority, the judges shall state the point of law upon which they differ, and the case shall then be heard upon that point only by one or more of the other judges of the High Court on such point, and it shall be then decided by majority of the judges who have now heard it and the judges who first heard it. Then where the High Court delivers a judgment in appeal filed before it under this section, effect shall be given to such judgment by either side on the basis of a certified copy of the judgment, and save as otherwise provided, the provisions of Code of Civil Procedure will apply to appeals of High Court. And then form number is given, that is of no use. And then at the last is appeal to Supreme Court. So which appeal will lie to Supreme Court? Two appeals. One is the order passed by national bench or regional bench. So if the order was passed by the national bench of tribunal or the regional bench and you are the aggrieved person, you can make appeal directly to Supreme Court. You don't have to go to High Court. Okay, that is the first one. Or second is, if the order was passed by the state bench of the tribunal, then you first went to High Court. High Court gave its decision, but you are still aggrieved. So whoever is the aggrieved party out of High Court's decision will then file the next appeal to Supreme Court, the final appeal. But there is a procedure there. Understand that procedure. When the High Court gives the order, and if you are aggrieved, you have to pray before the High Court. Hey High Court, hey Judge, hey Milord, please certify my case as fit to be taken to Supreme Court. You need a fitness certificate from the High Court. If the High Court gives you that fitness certificate, then you can file an appeal to Supreme Court, otherwise not. Interesting, na? But that is the procedure. You have to obtain a fitness certificate from the High Court. You are the aggrieved party, go back to High Court and ask them for a fitness certificate. So if the High Court judge feels that yes, this is an important matter and Supreme Court must decide this matter, it will give you that fitness certificate. Then you can come to Supreme Court and file an appeal. And what if the High Court doesn't give you the fitness certificate? If they reject, then what happens? Then you cannot come to Supreme Court. But then there is another route. Constitution of India, Article 136, gives you the power to file a special leave petition, SLP in short, in the Supreme Court. So that is a via route, another route available to you, that if the High Court doesn't give you the fitness certificate, then you can file an SLP. And this SLP will first come up for admission before the Supreme Court. You have to satisfy the Supreme Court judge that this case is an important one, please take it. Then they will accept it, they will admit it. After SLP is admitted, then the hearing will be done on merits of the case and then the decision will be passed. So see, so one is national bench or regional bench, and secondly, from any judgment or order passed by the High Court in an appeal made under section 117 in a case which on its own motion or on the oral application made by or on behalf of the party aggrieved, immediately after passing of the judgment or order, the High Court certifies to be fit to be appealed to Supreme Court. Understood? Then the provisions of the Code of Civil Procedure will apply to Supreme Court. So nothing much is given here. Supreme Court has its own powers. They will exercise the powers, they will hear both the parties and decide the case. And where the judgment of the High Court is varied or reversed in appeal, effect shall be given to the orders of the Supreme Court in the manner provided in 117 in the case of judgment of High Court. Means again both the parties will have to give effect to that order. Simple points. And last is 119, which says sums due to be paid notwithstanding appeal. Notwithstanding that appeal has been preferred to High Court or Supreme Court, sums due to the government as a result of an order passed by national or regional bench of the tribunal or the state bench or area bench of the tribunal under so and so sections, as the case may be, shall be payable in accordance with the order so passed. Means the tribunal has passed an order against you requiring you to pay tax. You have to first deposit that tax or the interest penalty, etc., and then only you can make an appeal to High Court or Supreme Court, as the case may be. And then appeal not to be filed in certain cases. 120. Negative list of appeal, you can say. So it says the board may, on the recommendation of the council from time to time, issue orders or instructions or directions fixing such monetary limits as it may deem fit for the purpose of regulating the filing of appeal or application by the officer of the central tax under the provisions of this chapter. So this is what we can say a monetary limit mechanism to avoid frivolous appeals. And this doesn't apply to assessee, this applies to the department, that if the amount involved is less than a certain amount, no appeal should be filed. So amounts are fixed for at different levels. A certain amount will be fixed for the first appeal, that is appellate authority, then a certain amount for the tribunal, then certain amount for High Court, and certain amount for Supreme Court. Only if the amount involved in the case, the amount recoverable, exceeds that prescribed limit, then only the appeals can be filed, otherwise not to be filed. So it's like that. And if you have read these provisions in income tax, then you would remember what I am saying, right? And lastly, 121 is given, that notwithstanding, so 120 you have to read once. Okay, let me tell you one or two more points are there. Okay, so first, monetary limits. You just write down here, monetary limits will be fixed for each appeal, right? And if the amount involved is less than the monetary limits, then appeal will not be filed. Okay, now certain technical points you must understand. Now there is something called as precedence. Precedence means if you do something once, then you are deemed to have accepted it, so you cannot challenge it next time. Not understood? It's simple. Like for example, if I hit you hard in the class and you don't say anything, the next time when I hit you, you cannot challenge me. You cannot say, sir, how are you hitting me? Or I hit you hard last day. You did not challenge now. So now you have deemed to have accepted that point. So you cannot challenge it later on. Now this obviously doesn't apply in criminal law, but it applies in appeals. Means what? That if a decision comes, if suppose appellate authority decides something in my favor, and the department does not go into appeal to tribunal, okay, they did not go into appeal to tribunal, they accepted it. They accepted the decision and they did not go into appeal to tribunal. After a few months, same question again arises. Same question of law or fact on the same matter again arises. The ground is the same. And the appellate authority again decides it in my favor. Can the department go into appeal to tribunal? Answer is no. Because they accepted it last time and they did not file appeal, they will have to accept this time also, and they are precluded. Precluded means stopped from filing the appeal. So this is called as the rule of estoppel. Rule of precedence and rule of estoppel. Once you accept something, you cannot deny it later on. You cannot change your position. You cannot change your view later on. Rule of estoppel. But in this scenario, what happens is that, say for example, government has prescribed a limit of 20 lakhs. Okay, they prescribed a limit of 20 lakhs. Now last time what happened was that when the decision was given by the authority, the amount involved was less than 20 lakhs. The department did not accept the judgment. They were aggrieved. But they could not go into appeal just because they had to follow the monetary limit. And the amount involved was less than monetary limit, so they did not went into appeal. So in this scene now, they did not went into appeal. Why? Why? Because of the limitation of amount, not because they have accepted the case. Next time, similar grounds, similar decision has come, but now the amount involved is more than the monetary limit. So will the department be free to file an appeal? Yes, it will be free. So now it will not be precluded. The rule of estoppel will not apply in this case. So rule of estoppel applies when you don't file an appeal on merits, not because you are stopped because of monetary limits. If the department does not file appeal on merits of the case, then rule of estoppel applies. Then later on, next time, they cannot file the appeal on the same ground. So that is one point to be understood here. So those points are then given in 2, 3, 4. Like in 2 it says that wherein pursuance of the order or instruction or directions issued under 1, the officer of the central tax has not filed an appeal or application against any decision or order passed under the provisions of this act. By fulfilling the monetary limit, it has not filed an appeal. It shall not preclude such officer, means not stop, not preclude, means rule of estoppel will not apply. Such officer of central tax from filing appeal or application in any other case involving the same or similar issues or questions of law. Okay, so rule of estoppel will not apply. If you are following the monetary limits and therefore you did not file appeal, then rule of estoppel will not apply. Next time you can go into appeal. Similarly, 3 says, notwithstanding the fact that no appeal has been filed by the officer of central tax pursuant to the orders of the monetary limits, no person being a party in appeal or application shall contend, means I cannot go and contend before the court, that the officer of central tax has acquiesced. Acquiesced means accepted. So we cannot say that the officers have accepted the decision. No, they haven't accepted. They did not go into appeal just because of monetary limit, not because they have accepted on merits. So we cannot contend this later on. And 4 point says that the tribunal or the court hearing such appeal or application shall have regard to circumstance under which the appeal or application was not filed by the officer in pursuance of the orders under subsection 1. Simple. And then 121, non-appealable decision or orders. It says no appeal shall lie against any decision taken or order passed by officer of central tax if such decision taken or order passed relates to any one or more of the following matters. Number 1, an order of the commissioner or other authority empowered to direct transfer of proceedings from one officer to another. So if the senior authority has transferred the proceedings from officer A to officer B, can I challenge it in the court of law? No, nobody can challenge. So transferring the business cannot be challenged. Secondly, order pertaining to seizure or retention of books of accounts, registers and documents. Thirdly, order sanctioning prosecution under the act. Order sanctioning prosecution cannot be challenged. This you will understand in the next chapter of penalty and prosecution. If the senior officer has authorized the junior officer to file a case in the magistrate's court, that cannot be challenged. The prosecution itself can be challenged. If they have ordered jail of 3 years, you can challenge it. But you cannot challenge the senior authority's power to authorize. Or an order passed under section 80. So those are simple points. And that's it. So that was a simple chapter, very interesting chapter of appeals and revision. Again, you can expect one question. Maximum marks would be 4 to 5.